Hi, my name is Vanessa Carter, and if you told me 6 months ago I'd be writing this about her, I would have laughed, or cried, or both, because until that day I truly believed I had the kind of sister most women dreamed of. The kind you grow up with side by side, sharing bedrooms, secrets, prom dresses, everything. The kind of sister who's in your wedding photos, standing beside you, hand on your back, smile wide and real. The kind you'd never doubt. Her name is Madeline. People always loved how different we were. She had the big, sparkly energy, the natural charisma that turned every room into her stage. I was quieter, more practical. I remembered birthdays, packed tissues in my purse, picked her up at 2 a.m. when she drank too much, cried too hard, loved the wrong guy. She called me her anchor. I called her my storm, so when she called me 2 months ago, breathless and glowing, and said, "Ness, he proposed. He actually did it," I screamed like a teenager. She'd been dating Nathan for just under a year. He was quiet, composed, a little stiff maybe, but steady. Reliable. A doctor with a gentle voice and a good family. At first, I thought he was boring. But boring was good for Maddie. Boring meant safe. So I told her yes, of course I'd help with the engagement party. Of course I'd co-plan it with Mom. Of course I'd lend her the ivory wrap dress she always loved on me. I even offered to cover the florist bill when she said she was short. That was who I was. That was who we were. And that's how I ended up standing in Rosewood Hall, surrounded by white lanterns and champagne flutes, smiling politely at Nathan's aunts and watching my sister beam from across the room. I wore navy satin, understated earrings, low heels. My husband Eli looked sharp and gray. He always hated these kinds of events. Too many fake hugs, too many questions about kids. But he came. For me, I thought that was all that mattered. Until he touched my wrist. It was a soft touch, intentional, 2 fingers. "No smile, we need to talk," he said quietly. Close to my ear, my stomach sank. You know when something's wrong before anyone says it? That low, humming panic in your chest that doesn't match the music around you? I nodded slowly. Now he looked at me like I was missing something obvious. Yes, now, outside, I glanced back at the room. Maddie was laughing with Nathan's mother. Someone popped open a second bottle of Prosecco. I didn't want to leave, not because I thought I'd missed something, but because something inside me whispered that everything was about to change. We stepped out the side door into the garden. The air was cool, laced with the scent of hydrangeas and citronella candles. I could still hear the music from inside. Soft jazz, clinking glasses, distant laughter. Eli didn't speak right away. He took out his phone, tapped, turned the screen toward me. "Vanessa," he said, his voice flat. "You need to see this," and I did. I wish I hadn't. It was a photo, blurry but close enough. Taken indoors, judging by the lighting. A mirror selfie, her face half turned. Bare shoulder. Familiar necklace, my necklace. But it wasn't the necklace that made my throat close. It was his hand, Nathan's, wrapped around her waist, holding the phone, and Madeline, smiling not in that wide, party-perfect way. No, in that quiet way, that private way. I looked up at Eli, blinking hard. "Where did you? Doesn't matter," he said, jaw clenched. "There's more." He slid to the next image, and I felt the ground move under me. The second image wasn't even graphic. That's the worst part. It wasn't some bedroom shot, some scandalous selfie that screamed guilt. It was them, Madeline and Nathan, sitting across from each other at a table, coffee cups in hand, a window behind them, late afternoon light pouring in. Her fingers were on his. Their heads were too close for friends. He was looking at her, not like a man cheating on his fiancée, but like a man in love. I felt a strange, cold pressure in my throat, like my body forgot how to swallow. "I don't understand," I said, but the words were empty. I did understand. I just didn't want to. Eli didn't rush me. He just stood there, phone still in hand, watching me. "I got these from someone who works at that cafe," he said eventually. "They didn't know it was your sister. Just recognized him, sent them to me thinking it was some mistake. At first, I thought so too." I shook my head slowly. "That doesn't make sense. Maddie and Nathan, they're engaged. This party, exactly," he said, his voice tight. "And these photos were taken last week, Vanessa." I stared at the timestamp. 7:42 p.m. Thursday. I was with Madeline that night. Or, I thought I was. No, wait, she canceled dinner last minute, said she had a headache. I'd offered to bring soup, but she said not to, told me she just wanted to sleep. Instead, she was with him. I pressed a hand to my stomach. It felt like it was folding inward, like something was collapsing in on itself. And then, as if some cruel part of my brain flipped a switch, the memories started rearranging themselves. Madeline joking that Nathan always smelled like my husband's cologne, her texting constantly during brunch, then smiling when his name came up. The way she'd asked me for advice, on whether Nathan was the one. The strange tension at the last family dinner when she showed up wearing that silk blouse, my blouse, that I'd told her Eli had bought me for our anniversary. How Nathan's eyes lingered on her just a second too long when we first introduced them. None of it had meant anything at the time. I'd brushed every single piece aside, like lint off my coat, because who suspects their sister? I felt dizzy. I don't know what to do, I whispered. I wasn't even sure if I meant now or ever. Eli finally stepped closer, gently took the phone from my hands. You don't have to decide anything tonight, but I wasn't going to let you stand in there celebrating her without knowing. I looked up at him, really looked, and for the first time in years, maybe ever, I saw the quiet sadness in his eyes. The burden of knowing, of carrying it, of waiting for me to catch up. He'd known longer than he admitted. Maybe not everything, but something, and now that I saw it too, the lie couldn't be undone. I turned back toward the glowing windows of the hall. I could see her silhouette, Madeline, laughing, probably tossing her head back the way she always did. Elegant, perfect, adored, and completely fake. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I heard myself say, I want to stay. Eli blinked. Stay, I nodded slowly. She wants a perfect party, fine. She'll get one. The photos, the gifts, the toasts. My voice was shaking, but I held it. But I'm not leaving. Not until I see how far she's willing to go with this performance. He studied me carefully. Then nodded. All right, he said. I'll be right beside you. I smoothed my dress, blinked away the sting in my eyes, and walked back inside like nothing had happened. Because sometimes, silence is sharper than rage, and I was done being the quiet sister who looked the other way. The rest of the night passed in a haze I could only describe as elegantly suffocating. The music, the candles, the laughter, it all carried on, effortless and glittering, as if nothing in the world was out of place, but I saw it differently now. Madeline floated across the room in her pale pink dress like some princess made of smoke and secrets. She looked beautiful. No, she looked strategically perfect. Not a hair out of place, not a falter in her smile. She clutched Nathan's arm like he was a trophy and leaned into him like she'd just found the only man who could ever understand her. And I watched it all from the corner, holding a glass of champagne I didn't drink, smiling when people passed by, nodding politely at stories I didn't hear. Eli stayed close. He knew not to touch me. Knew not to speak unless I initiated. He'd done his part. Now it was mine. Madeline came over around 8:30, cheeks flushed, eyes sparkling. There's my favorite sister, she beamed, wrapping her arms around me. I stiffened, but let her do it. I didn't hug her back. She leaned back, slightly confused, then smiled again. You okay? You seem distant. I tilted my head just enough. Tired, that's all. Long day, she nodded, brushing it off. God, I'm so glad you're here, Ness. I was telling Nathan earlier, you've always been the glue in this family. Remember Mom's 50th? You were running the whole thing while Dad was off flirting with the caterer. I forced a laugh. Hard to forget, Nathan approached behind her, one arm draped casually across her lower back. Vanessa, he said with that soft, controlled voice of his. Thanks for everything. The setup, the planning, you've done so much. I looked him dead in the eyes. I'm good at covering things up, he blinked. Just a flicker, but I saw it. The tiniest twitch of his jaw, the way his grip on Madeline's waist adjusted. She didn't notice. Anyway, she chirped, oblivious. We're doing a toast in 15. You're still speaking, right? Wouldn't miss it, I smiled. She clapped her hands together and floated off again. Nathan lingered. I watched him. He watched me. I didn't want this, he said quietly, almost like an apology. It just happened. My blood went cold. So he knew what I knew, no lies, no excuses, just that I said nothing. And eventually he walked away. By the time the toast began, I was a shell of my former self. I stood at the mic, cleared my throat. The room fell quiet. I looked at Madeline, who beamed like a child waiting for her birthday song. I've known Madeline my whole life, I began. Obviously. Light laughter, I've seen her through scraped knees, broken hearts, last-minute Halloween costumes, and failed math tests. I've seen her bold, I've seen her fragile. I've seen her when she thinks no one's watching. I paused. Let that hang. She tilted her head, uncertain now. And in every moment I've admired how she can adapt, how she always finds a way to make things shine in her favor. No matter the odds, no matter who's in the way. A silence swept the room, slightly uneasy. She's getting married to a man who clearly adores her. And I hope truly that what they build is real, that it's honest, that it lasts. Her smile wavered, but either way, I lifted my glass, voice steady. To Madeline, to her talent for reinvention, may she always find someone new to believe in her stories. A beat of silence, then the crowd erupted in awkward claps and a few half-laughs. Madeline smiled too wide. Nathan looked at the floor and I stepped down, heart pounding like a fist in my chest. I went to the restroom after, locked the door, sat on the toilet fully clothed and just breathed. I didn't cry, that would come later, when no one could hear. Instead, I stared at myself in the mirror, really stared. The way you do when you're trying to see someone else, someone stronger, someone smarter. And I remembered something from college, a story I'd buried. A girl in Madeline's dorm. Her name was Chloe, I think. She dropped out sophomore year. No one knew why. I'd asked Maddie once. She just shrugged and said, she got weird, thought people were out to get her. I remembered Chloe crying in the hallway once. Her door was open, Madeline's voice was calm, manipulative, and I'd walked away, thinking it wasn't my business. Now I wondered if Chloe ever had a boyfriend, or a fiancé, and whether he had a charming smile and a sister-in-law named Madeline. That night, long after the last guest left and the lights at Rosewood Hall dimmed, I sat alone on the edge of our bed. The zipper of my dress was still half done, my earrings still in. Eli had gone to shower, but not before bringing me a glass of water and asking quietly, "You want me to sleep on the couch?" I shook my head. "No, stay," he nodded, said nothing else, and disappeared into the steam. My phone sat in my lap, glowing with unopened messages. Congratulations. Compliments. Someone even sent a video of my toast with laughing emojis. I didn't open it. I didn't want to see my face at that moment because I didn't know who I was anymore. Instead, I opened something else, my sister's Instagram page. I'd never looked at it the way I did now. Every photo became evidence, every caption a line of carefully written fiction. Her and Nathan in the botanical gardens, her brunching with my forever girls, her beaming at a charity gala wearing my earrings tagged as blessed beyond words. She looked like the woman every mother would be proud to raise. And yet, all I could see was a wolf in pearls. I clicked through the comments. Thousands of hearts, praise, fire emojis. One username caught my eye, @Cloburn__. A ghost from the past. My blood froze. I tapped, the account was private. Profile photo, a blurry sunset, but the name stuck with me. Chloe Byrne. I hadn't heard that name in over a decade, but now it rang like a bell through glass. I went to my closet, pulled down the top box, and found the old photo album from college. The real kind, printed photos, taped edges, messy handwriting. Page 12, there she was. Blonde, shy smile, always wore long sleeves, always said thank you. A girl who was never quite comfortable around Madeline. I flipped to the back, where Maddie had scribbled jokes next to everyone's face. Jess equals tequila queen, Liz equals always late, Vanessa equals future therapist, Chloe equals paranoid much. At the time, I laughed. We all did. Now it made me sick. I opened Google, Chloe Byrne, Boston University dropout, 2009. A few clicks later, I found a wedding registry. She'd married someone named David Crane in 2018. No photos, just a list of gifts and a date. I typed faster, David Crane, Facebook, his profile was public. Generic man, khakis, dog dad. Fine, then I saw it. One of the oldest photos, dated April 2017, him and Chloe on a boardwalk. She wore a floral dress, looked healthy, happy, and there in the far background, almost out of frame, a woman, dark hair, big sunglasses, holding a phone, smiling. It wasn't clear. It was barely anything, but I knew that stance, that chin tilt, that was Madeline. I sat back slowly. My heart was in my ears. Coincidence, or had she? I clicked through more photos. But nothing else stood out. Just that one moment, that one glitch in the background of someone else's life. Was she following Chloe? Had she interfered? Was that what drove her out of school? The next morning, I asked Eli, "Do you remember Chloe from college?" He looked at me for a moment, barely. "She was quiet, right? Lived down the hall from you too?" I nodded. "She dropped out." "Do you know why?" He frowned. "Didn't she have a breakdown?" That word. The one they always use for women they want to dismiss. "I think Maddie had something to do with it," I said slowly. He looked at me like I'd just announced a conspiracy. "Vanessa, are you sure you're not spiraling?" I didn't answer. Because I was spiraling. But for the first time in my life, it felt like the right thing to do. That day, I sent Chloe a message. Simple, polite, "Hi, this is going to sound strange. I think we were in the same dorm. Back in 2008. Vanessa Carter. Madeline's sister. I was wondering, could we talk? I didn't expect a reply, but I got one. The next evening, 5 words, "I was waiting for you." We met at a cafe on the edge of town, far from where anyone would recognize either of us. It was a gray Tuesday, damp and cloudy, the kind of weather that made everything feel heavier. Chloe was already there when I arrived, seated by the window, half hidden behind a mug of tea. She looked older, yes, but not in a tired way. In a rebuilt way, stronger bones, still eyes. She stood when I walked in. I hadn't expected that. We hugged, and it felt hesitant but not cold. "Hi," I said softly. She nodded. "Hi." We sat. For the first few minutes, we talked like people circling a crater. Safe things, weathered jobs, whether we had kids. She had one, a son 6 years old. Then finally she said, "You saw something." I nodded. "At the engagement party, photos, Maddie and my sister's fiancé." Chloe didn't blink. That tracks 2 words, no shock, no gasp, just confirmation. I leaned in. "Did something happen back then? In school?" She stared at me for a long time before answering. "Vanessa, your sister is very charming and very careful. She doesn't get caught unless she wants to." I stayed silent. "She used to date my boyfriend before he and I ever met. I didn't know at first. He never told me. We got serious, moved in together, and then things started changing. He'd get distant, then suddenly overly affectionate. I thought it was me. I thought I was paranoid. I started snooping, crying, accusing him of things I couldn't even name. I swallowed hard. One night I saw a message pop up on his laptop, just a smiley face, no name. I asked him who it was. He said it was nothing. But I recognized the tone. I'd seen her write like that on dorm whiteboards. Chloe's fingers gripped the tea mug. I confronted her. I asked straight up, "Are you talking to my boyfriend?" And she laughed. Like I was insane. Said he wasn't even her type. That she'd been helping him pick out a ring. I didn't breathe. She told our floor raw that I was unstable, that I was threatening her. I ended up in the campus counseling office. The raw suggested I take a leave of absence. "You dropped out," I whispered. "I dropped out," she confirmed. I sat back. My spine was stiff as wood. I thought she was just selfish, a little dramatic. I thought I knew her. Chloe reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "You don't." She slid it across the table. Inside were 5 printed screenshots, old, from early smartphones, fuzzy but readable. A Facebook message from Madeline to Chloe's ex-boyfriend, another one to Chloe, fake sympathetic, pretending to be worried, a chat log where Madeline joked with someone else about how easy it was to make the little dorm mouse run, a photo of Chloe sitting alone in the quad, from behind a tree. "I kept these," she said. "Not for revenge, for sanity." I looked at the photo, and for the first time in my life, I wanted to scream, not for myself, but for every girl who had ever crossed paths with Madeline and left feeling like she was the problem. "Why are you telling me all this now?" I asked. "Because," Chloe said quietly, "you're the only person she's ever kept. You were the exception. And now you're not." The words hit me like a slap in the chest. She was right. For 34 years, I'd been the loyal one, the defender, the fixer, the anchor. But if Madeline had crossed me now, it meant something had changed. Or maybe she was just done hiding. Chloe stood up. "Put on her coat. You want to hurt her. I get it, but be careful, because Maddie doesn't play fair. And she never, ever loses." I watched her walk out into the fog, and I realized this wasn't about one betrayal, it was about decades of rot finally coming to the surface. I didn't speak the entire drive home. Eli knew better than to ask. He glanced at me a few times, one hand on the steering wheel, the other resting near my knee, but he never touched me. Not that night. Not after what I told him Chloe had said. Not after I showed him the screenshots. He just drove slow and steady as if we were both made of glass. When we pulled into the driveway, the porch light was already on. Our dog, Penny, barked twice from inside and then stopped. I stared at our front door like it belonged to someone else's house. I was no longer Vanessa Carter, the sister of the bride-to-be. I was something else now. We went inside. Eli poured me a glass of wine without asking, then disappeared to take a call for work. I walked to the bookshelf in the living room, reached up behind the row of cookbooks, and pulled down a weathered brown envelope. Inside were letters. Old ones, most from college, some even earlier. Madeline used to write me notes all the time. She said texting was lazy. She loved handwriting things, leaving them in my locker, sliding them under my door. I unfolded one, April 2007 Ness. "I saw your boyfriend today on campus. He looked kinda weird. Maybe he's hiding something. Lol, just kidding. Love you, M." At the time, I'd read it and laughed. My boyfriend then was named Craig. He was awkward but sweet. We'd broken up 3 weeks after that letter. I never knew why, not really. He just stopped showing up, said he felt off, like he didn't belong. I flipped through the others, some sweet, some odd. One written after a big test said, "I told Liz you got an A, she was so pissed. I kind of love that, you're too modest, Ness. You should brag more, but don't worry, I'll do it for you." I frowned. That wasn't what happened. Liz and I both got A, and I told Liz. Maddie wasn't even in that class, and suddenly something shifted in my memory. There were always these moments, small, seemingly innocent, where Maddie would insert herself, create little rivalries, drop suggestions, shift dynamics. I never questioned them, because she was my sister. I took the stack of letters and spread them out across the dining table. I began rereading them like they were evidence, because maybe now, they were patterns emerged. Maddie would always preempt a shift, warn me, joke about someone, plant a seed, then, a few days or weeks later, things would fall apart, friends ghosting me, roommates turning cold, professors suddenly distant. It was subtle. But now, under a different light, it felt orchestrated. I pulled out one from 2010, written after my first serious adult breakup. Ness. "I never liked Claire. She was too opinionated and she drank way too much. I always knew she'd leave. I'm just glad it happened now and not when you two moved in together. Some people don't know how to handle women like us, She made my pain hers, framed herself as a fellow victim, a savior, a truth teller, and I'd believed her. For years, a low buzzing started in my ears. I picked up my phone and opened Facebook. Searched Claire Bennett. I hadn't spoken to her in nearly 13 years. Her profile was public. I scrolled, photos of her and a woman, smiling, kissing, with the caption, 13 years later, and I still can't believe she chose me over fear. My eyes stopped. The date, March 2010, that was the month we broke up. My hand trembled slightly as I opened the comments. And there, buried under well wishes, was a name I hadn't expected to see, Madeline Carter, a simple comment. Funny how you can lie for years and still play the victim. My skin turned to ice. Madeline had inserted herself. She had messaged my ex, accused her, stirred something. Pushed her out of my life. She wanted me isolated, dependent. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Eli came into the room, saw the spread of letters, the computer open, the wine untouched. Vanessa, I didn't look at him. I think she's been doing this to me for most of my life, I said. I think Madeline's been dismantling me, piece by piece, quietly, carefully, making sure I never had anything of my own. He stepped closer. Why? I finally turned my head. My voice was steady now. Because as long as I was beneath her, I wasn't a threat. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there beside Eli, eyes open, heart racing, letting the silence around me sink into my bones. By morning, I had a list, names, dates, places. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet, but writing it down made it real. And that was enough. The first name on my list was Mom. We met at the Garden Cafe near her church, the kind of place with bird cages as decor and muffins the size of softballs. She ordered chamomile. I ordered black coffee and didn't touch it. She smiled when she saw me. You looked beautiful the other night, honey. Everyone said your toast was, did Madeline ever lie to you? I interrupted. The smile dropped from her lips so fast it was like a switch had been flipped. What kind of question is that? Not small lies, not I borrowed your blouse lies. I mean about people, about me, about things that mattered. She set her teacup down. Slowly, there was a pause. Then she said, there were moments. I don't think I let myself believe it at the time. I leaned forward. Like what? She looked past me, like she was searching for a memory she'd buried long ago. When you were in high school, you came home crying once. Said Rachel told everyone you cheated on your calculus test. You remember? I nodded, vividly. Rachel was my lab partner, my best friend since 8th grade. We never spoke again after that. Well, Mom said quietly, Rachel came to me. 2 years later, at a church event, she apologized, said she only accused you because Madeline told her you had cheated. Said she saw it. I felt my stomach lurch. I asked Maddie about it, Mom continued. She cried, said Rachel was jealous, said she was always trying to make you look bad. I stared at her, and you believed her? I didn't want to believe you had cheated, Mom whispered. So yes, I did. We sat in silence. The cafe music drifted faintly between us, some soft indie guitar song that made everything feel even more distant. She always had a way of making herself the hero, Mom added. Or the victim. Never the villain. I left without finishing my coffee. Later that week, I got a call from an old college friend, Jasmine. She had seen the message I left on a closed alumni group about looking into someone from our dorm days. I hadn't named names, but Jasmine had guessed. She invited me to meet her in the city. I did. We sat in a tiny wine bar off a side street. Jasmine was still gorgeous, radiant, self-assured, with a confidence I envied even in college. She didn't hesitate. I'm guessing this is about Maddie, she said the moment I sat down. I nodded. I knew something was off back then, but I didn't want to get involved. She was slippery. Did she do something to you? She hesitated, swirled her glass, then not to me, but to someone I was seeing. I leaned forward. His name was Evan. We weren't serious, but we had a good thing going, until suddenly he ghosted me out of nowhere. Wouldn't look at me in class, wouldn't answer my texts. What happened? I found out later he and Maddie had been messaging, that she'd told him I was cheating on him, that she'd seen me with some guy at a party. Was it true? She laughed dryly. It was my cousin Ness. He came to visit for the weekend. I exhaled. Hard. Why didn't you say anything? Because Evan believed her. And when I confronted Maddie, she made me look crazy. Said I was jealous. Said I was trying to steal her boyfriend. She did that a lot, I whispered. Turn people against each other. She didn't need to, Jasmine replied. People wanted to believe her. She was beautiful, magnetic. People always want to think women like that are telling the truth. I sat back, shoulders heavy. She ever talk about me? I asked. Jasmine looked at me, a long, sad look. Once, she said you were too soft, too trusting, that she worried about you all the time, that people walked all over you, that I needed her to protect me. Exactly that night, I looked through my phone again, scrolling deep, searching for any signs I'd missed, and then I found something, a voicemail, old, dated 3 years ago. From my father. He died 2 years ago, sudden heart attack, the kind of death that leaves conversations unfinished. His voice was scratchy, quiet. Vanessa, I need to talk to you about something, about your sister. I don't want to do this over the phone, but I think there's something you should know. I've stayed quiet too long. Call me. My fingers froze. The timestamp was 6 weeks before he died. I never called him back. I was busy. Madeline had said he was just being dramatic. He gets weird when he's alone too long, she said. I'd believed her. And now he was gone, and whatever he wanted to tell me had vanished with him, unless I went to my mother's house the next morning, went to the attic, dug through old boxes, and under a stack of his legal papers, I found a small sealed envelope to Vanessa. Do not open until you're ready. I held the envelope in my hands for a long time before I opened it. The paper was yellowing at the edges, folded neatly in thirds. My father's handwriting, careful, small, always in black ink. I recognized it instantly. It made my throat close. I sat in the attic, knees pulled up under me, the dusty air thick and still. I unfolded the letter slowly as if it might fall apart in my hands. Vanessa, if you're reading this, it means I either ran out of time or courage. Probably both. I never wanted to put this on you. You're the gentle one, the one who listens, the one who makes everyone feel safe, but you're also the one most likely to forgive what shouldn't be forgiven. That's why I'm writing to you, and not your mother. Your sister has always been complicated. When she was little, we thought she was just sensitive, then clever, then a natural leader. But I started noticing things, little things at first. She told lies that served no purpose, accused you of things you didn't do, convinced your mother you broke the vase when she'd done it. She said you stole her diary, she said you kissed her friend's boyfriend. None of it was true, but we believed her because she made us feel like we had to. I once caught her watching your friend Lucy cry in the backyard. Just watching, not comforting her, not asking what was wrong, just standing there. When I asked her what happened, she said, she's learning. People lie, Vanessa, you were 8, Maddie was 10, I don't know what it is. If it's something broken in her, or something she learned from watching us. But I do know this, she's not just manipulative, she's strategic, she makes people love her just enough to believe she wouldn't hurt them. And then she does. I once asked her why she lied about you scratching her CD, she smiled. Said, because if I didn't say it, nobody would notice me. That's when I started documenting things, just in case. You'll find a USB in my office drawer, hidden in the second copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Behind the spine, I don't know what you'll do with it. I only know I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. I let her use you to stay innocent, and I let you protect her because it kept our family quiet. You always deserved better than that. Dad, I didn't realize I was crying until I felt the tears on my lips. I sat there, surrounded by holiday decorations and old curtains and yellowing boxes of tax returns, and sobbed into my father's truth, the kind of grief that isn't about death, but about how much someone knew and said too late. The next morning I went back to my parents' house while Mom was out. I went straight to the office. I pulled down the copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. I'd seen it 1,000 times growing up. I opened the spine. It cracked slightly. Inside, tucked between the pages, was a thin, black USB drive. I took it home, plugged it into my laptop. My hands were shaking. It contained a folder, labeled Records. Inside were subfolders, each named by year: 2002, 2005, 2009, 2013, photos, screenshots of emails, scans of school reports, scans of letters, even one from a school counselor, concerned about Madeline's tendency to disassociate blame and create alternate versions of social conflict. There was one audio file. I hesitated, then clicked play. It was a recording of a conversation between my father and someone named Mrs. Donnelly, Maddie's 9th grade English teacher. Donnelly, voice muffled but clear. She's very bright, exceptionally verbal. But I've noticed a pattern. She mimics people, especially other girls, mirrors them, their clothes, speech, then she slowly isolates them. Dad, quiet, and they don't realize. Donnelly, not until they're already alone. By then she's created a narrative around them. She's very persuasive. There was silence. Dad, what do you think it means? Donnelly, I'm not a psychologist, but I think she knows exactly what she's doing. I stopped the audio. I couldn't listen anymore. I didn't know what hurt more, the confirmation, or the fact that no one ever told me. All these years, I'd believed I just wasn't lovable enough, that I lost friends because I was boring, forgettable, too serious. But maybe I didn't lose them. Maybe they were taken by her. That evening, Eli came home from work, took one look at me sitting at the kitchen island surrounded by printed emails, photos, letters, and said, "Do you want me to burn her world down, or do you want to do it yourself?" I smiled for the first time in days. "No," I said. "She wants drama. She feeds on it. She wants me to scream, accuse, cry. That's how she stays the hero in the story she's written." Eli nodded. "So what's the plan?" I looked down at the envelope again. At my father's handwriting. "I'm going to show her what it's like to lose control. I didn't post anything online. I didn't confront her. I didn't send Nathan the screenshots. I knew she'd have a lie ready for that within seconds, some spin, some excuse. She always did. Instead, I started with one small thing. I texted Nathan 2 days later. "Hey, I found something I think you should see. I know it's uncomfortable, but if you want the full picture, I think you deserve it. No accusations, no emotion, just curiosity bait. I knew how men like Nathan responded to uncertainty. He was analytical, controlled, but also proud. He agreed to meet the next day, at a park near the hospital. I printed only one thing from my father's folder, a transcript of a conversation between Maddie and her college roommate where she bragged about testing boundaries with men. Just to see how much power she could keep without having to undress, there was a line in the message, "Vanessa thinks I'm helping her. But honestly, I just want to see if I can take something she thinks she deserves." I gave it to Nathan without commentary. Just slid it across the picnic table between us. He read it twice, then asked, "Is this real?" "Yes. Did you know, before the party?" "No, I found out minutes before I gave that toast." He looked like he'd been punched. "I thought you were cruel." He admitted. "I was calm," I corrected. "That's not the same thing," he rubbed his face. "I thought Maddie was complicated. I thought she had pain. I thought that's why she acted the way she did sometimes. She does have pain," I said, "but she knows how to use it. She weaponizes pity." We sat in silence. Then he said something I didn't expect. "She told me you cheated on Eli once. A few years ago." My hands went cold. "She said it broke your marriage, that you were still trying to earn his forgiveness." I stared at him. "I've never cheated on anyone," I said. "Not in my entire life," he nodded. Slowly, "I believe you." That's when I knew I didn't have to convince him anymore. He was already starting to see. I didn't stop there. At Mom's dinner the following weekend, a quiet family thing with just the five of us, I brought printed photos of me and Chloe from the cafe, smiling, alive. I made sure they sat visible in my open purse while I reached for the bread. Madeline noticed. I saw her eyes flick down. She froze. I didn't say a word, just smiled. Next week, I reached out to two women who used to work with Maddie at a nonprofit downtown. Women I remembered from old stories. One of them, Serena, had once been her assistant. The other, Tanya, had left suddenly with no explanation. I invited them for coffee. They came. And within 20 minutes, I had 3 more stories, all the same rhythm. Madeline turned people against each other. She took credit for other people's work. She hinted at people's personal weaknesses just enough to make them look unstable. I asked if they'd be willing to talk to someone else about it. Serena said, "As long as I don't have to go public. I just want her to stop ruining women's lives." So I compiled a quiet, tidy package, screenshots, statements, photos, dates. I didn't send it to the world. I sent it to 3 people. Nathan, her current boss, the head of the charity board where she'd just applied for a leadership role, no accusations. Just the facts, and a message that read, "You may want to take a closer look before making a decision about her." By the end of the week, Madeline's invitation to join the board was postponed indefinitely. She posted a story with some quote about God's timing and letting go of what isn't meant for you. But I saw her fingers trembling when she picked up her wine glass at brunch. That Sunday, she called me. "Hey," she said, voice thin, "have you been talking to anyone about what?" "I don't know, just in general." I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "I think you should be more specific." She hesitated. "I've just been getting weird energy from people. Nathan's been distant. My boss canceled our one-on-one. Mom's being weird. Maybe they're just tired of stories." A long pause. "You know, Ness," she said finally, "people don't like women who dig too much. You start sounding jealous." I almost laughed. "You think this is about jealousy? You've always been the quiet one. That's what made us work. You let me shine," and there it was. The truth. She needed me small, contained, forgiving. I didn't raise my voice, didn't accuse her. I just said, "You should be more careful, Maddie. Some people aren't quiet forever," and hung up. The shift wasn't dramatic, that was the point. Madeline's downfall didn't explode. It deteriorated. Quietly, patiently. Like mold behind perfect wallpaper. It started with Nathan canceling their couple's photo shoot. Then it was Serena's anonymous complaint to HR, which triggered an internal review at Madeline's office. Nothing public. Just enough to stop the board from voting on her promotion. Then Nathan moved out. I didn't gloat. I didn't say a word, but Mom noticed. At dinner one night, she asked, "Is everything okay with your sister?" "She's just adjusting to people remembering who they are without her," I said. Mom didn't argue. Instead, she sighed. "You were always the steady one." For the first time, I didn't smile at that. I just nodded because I wasn't steady anymore. I was awake. A few days later, I got a package in the mail, no return address. Inside was a flash drive. And a note, "You should have this." He kept backups. I plugged it into my laptop. Inside, one video file dated October 2017, my father, sitting in his office, the lighting dim. He looked tired. He looked older than I remembered. He took a deep breath, then started talking to the camera. "This is for Vanessa." In case I don't get to explain in person, she needs to know what happened between me and Madeline, and why I distanced myself those last few years. I sat up straighter. It was after your wedding. The night of you were already gone, Maddie stayed late, helped clean up, said she'd stay with us that night. She came into my office around midnight, holding a glass of wine. She said she wanted to talk, said she had secrets, said she didn't feel safe. She accused your husband, Eli, of flirting with her, of touching her wrist, of saying things to her when you weren't around. I gasped. I confronted Eli. He looked at me like I'd slapped him, swore on everything that he never touched her, that he'd never disrespect you like that. And Vanessa, I believed him. So I went back to Maddie. I asked why she lied. She started crying, said she was testing me, said she wanted to see whose side I'd take. She said, if you believe her husband over me, then you don't love me. He looked down in the video. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't just a liar, she was dangerous, and I couldn't pretend anymore. I told your mother, but she said I misunderstood. Said I was tired, that Maddie was emotional, that I was being dramatic, so I stopped trying to convince anyone. But I kept the truth. In case you ever needed it. He looked straight into the camera again. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me for not telling you sooner. But I couldn't protect you from someone you still loved. The video ended. I stared at the screen, hands shaking. That night, the night of my wedding, I'd been glowing, joyful, exhausted. Madeline had smiled through all of it. And while I was dancing with my new husband, she'd tried to destroy him. She hadn't succeeded. But that wasn't the point. She had tried. I printed the transcript of the video, folded it neatly, and I waited. 2 days later, Madeline texted, I miss you. Can we talk? I feel like everything's unraveling, I replied. Tomorrow, my place, just us. She arrived in a beige trench coat, sunglasses, hair twisted into a perfect low bun. She always dressed for forgiveness. I didn't let her sit. I handed her the printed transcript. She didn't take it at first, just looked at it, then up at me. What is this? You know what it is. She read the first paragraph, then stopped. Her eyes went glassy. But no tears, just calculation. I was drunk, she said flatly. It was the wedding. I was emotional. He'd been cold to me all night. You told Dad he touched you. I wanted to see if he'd pick me. You wanted to break my marriage before it began. She didn't answer. Instead, she sat down slowly, the transcript in her lap. You've never understood what it's like to be second, she said. That stunned me. Second, you were Mom's favorite. You were the center of every room we ever walked into, but not yours. That caught me off guard. What? You were always the one people trusted. The one they listened to. I could dance and charm and flirt, but when you walked in, people listened. You didn't even try, and I hated you for it. For a moment I felt pity, but it passed. You made me hate myself, I said softly, for years. For things you did, I didn't mean to. Yes, you did. You just didn't think I'd ever catch up. We sat in silence. Then I said, I'm not going to ruin you, Maddie. Her head snapped up. You're not? No, I don't need to. You've already started. I pointed to her phone buzzing on the table. Nathan, work email, charity board. The world was doing the work for me now. All I did, I whispered, was stop lying for you. Madeline left that day without another word. She didn't slam the door, didn't cry, didn't curse. She just folded the transcript, slid it into her purse, and walked out of my house like she had somewhere better to be. I didn't hear from her for 3 weeks, but I saw the cracks begin to spread. Nathan sent out a quiet announcement. After careful consideration, we've decided to postpone our engagement indefinitely. He moved into a smaller apartment in the city, changed his phone number, blocked her on social media. Her job made no public statement, but her name was quietly removed from the leadership development page. A new woman appeared there 2 days later. And as for the nonprofit board, they invited me to apply. I didn't. Not because I wasn't qualified, but because I didn't want anything built in her shadow. One evening, I was walking home from the grocery store. Cool air, amber light, one of those early fall evenings that makes everything feel a little cinematic. A woman I vaguely recognized from town, someone Maddie used to brunch with, stopped me on the sidewalk. Vanessa, I smiled. Hi. She hesitated, then said, I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but I just want to say I'm sorry. For what? For not seeing it all those years. I always thought you were lucky to have a sister like her. I nodded slowly. So did I. She looked like she wanted to ask more, but didn't. Instead, she touched my arm lightly and walked on. That was the moment I realized something. Madeline was no longer the sun in everyone's sky, and I didn't need to be her orbit. A week later, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, Madeline's handwriting. I stood over the kitchen sink, envelope trembling in my hand, debating whether to open it. I didn't want another apology, another manipulation, but I opened it anyway. Vanessa, I don't know who I am without you keeping me human. I never meant to become this person, but I think I always was. You were the one thing I believed was real. Even when I lied to you, I still needed you to believe in me. Because if you did, maybe I wasn't so awful. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I don't even know if you should. But I want to tell you one thing. When we were kids and I broke your favorite music box, I lied. I told Mom you dropped it. You cried and I laughed when she blamed you. I think that was the moment I realized how easy it was to make people love me more than they loved the truth. I stopped reading. I folded the letter. I didn't rip it. I didn't burn it. I just put it back in the envelope and dropped it in the bottom drawer of the desk. It didn't deserve a response. Sometime later, I ran into Chloe again. She was with her son. He was eating an ice cream cone, looking up at the sky. We smiled at each other, no words at first. Then she said, "How's the quiet feel?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, like oxygen, we talked for a while. About work, family, nothing deep. And then she said something I'll never forget. You know, some women spend their whole lives trying to escape a story they didn't write, but everyone still hands them the script. I nodded, and some, I said, set the whole script on fire. The last time I saw Madeline was 6 months later. It was at our mother's birthday. She showed up late, wore all black, brought a bottle of wine and a bouquet of white lilies. She was thinner, quieter, her makeup softer. She hugged Mom, said hello to a few people, then she looked at me. I didn't move. She gave me the smallest nod, not sorry, not pleading, just acknowledgement, and I nodded back. No war, no peace, just two women. One rebuilding, one unraveling, and no one left willing to play along. It's been almost a year now, a year since the engagement party, a year since Eli touched my wrist and said, "We need to talk," a year since the illusion cracked. And I saw my sister for who she really was. Madeline still exists, still posts filtered pictures, still quotes scripture and healing crystals and sings into her wine glass on late nights with new friends who don't know the old stories yet. And maybe that's okay. She'll keep reinventing, that's what she does. But I'm done being part of the scenery she decorates her life with. I kept some of the letters, burned a few, the flash drive. It's in a locked drawer now, not because I need it, but because sometimes survival isn't about remembering, it's about choosing when to forget. Eli and I were okay, better actually, he said once. It feels like I finally married the whole you. Not the part you thought you were allowed to be. We go on long walks now. He cooks more, I cry less, and sometimes when it rains, I sit by the window and listen. No music, no distractions, just the soft sound of something outside my control that doesn't ask for anything in return, and it feels like peace, not the loud kind, the earned kind. A friend asked me recently if I'd ever trust someone like that again, someone so close, so intimate, so deep in my circle, and I said, no, not because I'm bitter, but because trust isn't something you give people to prove you're good. It's something they build by not asking for it too easily. Madeline never built that. She inherited it. From our family, our history, from the role everyone thought she played so beautifully. But now I know better. And now so does everyone else. The real revenge, it wasn't the broken engagement, it wasn't the whispers that followed her through town, it wasn't the job she didn't get, or the ex-fiancé who never looked back. The real revenge was this. I didn't beg her to stay. I didn't protect her from herself. I didn't make it easier for her to keep pretending. I just opened the door, stepped out of the frame, and let the spotlight fall where it always should have, on the truth. And when I finally stopped holding my breath around her, I realized I'd been suffocating my whole life.